Hello, this is an overview of the Learning and Development Trends 2015 as delivered by CBI 360. CBI 360 is a training, coaching, and advisory firm. We offer different types of training programs in leadership, customer service, sales, and advisory services in strategy, corporate governance. Essentially, our vision and our mission is to inspire and empower individuals and organizations to achieve success through a 360-degree experience. Now, in March of this year, we actually held a breakfast workshop focusing on learning and development trends. Our goal was really to examine what is some of the critical information that can inform both industry professionals, that's HR professionals in learning and development, and also us as a training organization to be able to add more value to the programs that we deliver and the way in which we deliver them. So we began by highlighting that our mission for this particular workshop was to seek learning and development excellence. It's not enough to simply do the same old thing and hope for different results. We realized that we have to be able to elevate learning and development to the next level, and this was a starting point for us to begin the conversation on this. I like a quote by Confucius that says, "The will to win, the desire to succeed, the urge to reach your full potential, these are the keys that will unlock the door to personal excellence." So this is the reason why we feel it's important to have these conversations and schedule these sorts of workshops so that we can challenge ourselves to do better. But why are trends important? Why are we talking about trends? Well, in any industry, it's very important to stay ahead. It's very important to remain relevant. By examining the trends, or call it the latest shifts in a particular industry, we actually equip ourselves with relevant information so that we can innovate, so that we can come up with new and exciting ideas and continue to deliver fresh and exciting ways of doing things, and ultimately that's how we achieve results. It's also very important to adapt to changing business environments. We know that change is a constant in any business environment. So when we examine the trends, both globally, nationally, and ask ourselves what are the latest updates in our industry, then we're able to adapt, we're able to do better, we're able actually even to prepare, because some of the trends could help us start to strategize early and actually stay ahead of any kind of changes that could affect the business. And in so doing, then we began the workshop by essentially having 4 different conversations. The participants who attended the workshops were actually divided into 4 groups, and each group was mandated to look at 4 different questions that will help us address the learning and development trends. The first question we asked was, what are the 3 topmost training programs that were run in 2014? The second question we asked was, are you able to measure your return on investment? This is related to learning and development, and how. The third question was, is online training an option in the current L&D landscape? And the last question was, what delivery methods in training have the most impact? So we assigned this to 4 different groups. Everyone who attended this particular workshop was an L&D professional. So again, we felt that we're able to have good insights from people who've also been in the industry for some time. So the first group that looked at the first question, 3 topmost training programs in 2014, came up with 3 key areas that they felt this is where most organizations are spending when it comes to training. The first one is customer service. I believe this cuts across every industry. The second one is sales, which is also essential because, again, it cuts across all industry. Without sales, there's no revenue, and revenue is very critical for the business. Third, management and leadership. All managers need to be great leaders and lead their teams to success. So the success of an organization is highly dependent on the management team and the leadership. And this is why most organizations are willing to invest in management and leadership programs. The second question looked at the return on investment. This is tricky because I think this is an area that many different organizations struggle with, especially as pertains to learning and development. Yes, you invest in staff and different kinds of programs, but are we sure that we're getting the return on investment? Well, this team chose to look at this from an industry perspective and said that for most banks, ROI is measured through achieved targets. For state corporations, it's quite tricky to measure ROI, but essentially it can be measured through service and through awards for service. And this is how there's some form of proof that there has been a change in an organization. Employee retention, they suggested that this could be a viable way of measuring whether there's ROI for training. And finally, scoring and feedback from customers. Ultimately, the brand and the performance of the organization is the best way to actually evaluate whether the learning and development is working, because employees who are empowered are actually able to give more. Employees who have the right information to do their jobs are also able to meet their performance targets. The next question looked at, is online training an option in the current L&D landscape? This was also very interesting because there's a big shift towards digital, and we wanted to see whether most organizations are recognizing this shift and actually doing anything about it. So the consensus from this team was that globally, yes, online training is definitely an option that can work. Nationally, that's looking at Kenya, it can work, but organizations have to consider several factors. Number one, of course, is infrastructure. Number two, setup costs. Number three, staff buy-in. And the ease of use and skills needed. Of course, the capacity for staff to actually interact with any sort of system and use it efficiently is important. Ultimately, I think this team was able to say that at this point, the most effective is blended learning. There needs to be that face-to-face engagement, but then online can add on some value in terms of continuous learning and engagement. So blending the idea of workshops and face-to-face learning with online is ideal in the current landscape. Finally, the last question was looking at the delivery methods, and this is also very interesting. And this team actually mentioned that, well, there are different types of methods that are generally applied: lectures, role plays, demonstrations, videos, case studies, etc. But the ones with the most impact are, and number one was job-based role plays. I think this is because of the ability to relate the learning from a particular training program to case scenarios that are relevant for the job, and actually engage the staff, engage the employees to apply what they have actually learned in a training. Number two, mentorship and coaching programs. I believe the reason for this is because this creates a continuous channel to engage. So therefore, it's not a one-time kind of a thing where you have training and the training is done, but then there's no application. Rather, it creates a continuous way, continuously throughout the year, a way in which you can actually follow up and ensure that all the training is adding value and all the training methods that are taught are actually applied. Activity-driven, visual and engaging lectures. I think lectures are unavoidable. However, what this team agreed on was that the type of lecture is very important. Organizations, and I think most training programs, are moving away from the same old information-driven lectures to more activity-driven and visual. It's clear that a lot of employees now have information, so they're not looking to come in and listen to a long lecture with a lot of boring information. Rather, they want to be engaged and they want to participate in any training program. It was interesting because most of the teams actually came up with the same information that we had also gathered from our research. And I like a quote by Kenichi Omae that says, "Rowing harder doesn't help if the boat is headed in the wrong direction." This is why strategy is important. So as CBI, when we examined the biggest L&D trends of 2014, it was very interesting that it was almost the same thing that most of the teams actually shared with us. The top L&D spend areas: number one, onboarding and compliance; leadership, as we've mentioned; sales or product training; and customer service. What about return on investment? There's a huge focus on value addition. That is, what sorts of value adds are involved in learning and development programs, and how can this then inform the return on investment? Number three, blended learning. We've already talked about this. Yes, globally it seems like most organizations are incorporating digital platforms, but not digital platforms by themselves. There's a combination of digital with face-to-face engagement. Finally, visual delivery still remains strong, and scenario-based assessments are a huge trend that's coming up, whereby, and this actually relates to the role plays, really creating scenarios, on-the-job scenarios, to actually support the training programs that are delivered. Having said that, then we recognize that we have to be able to adapt to these trends. As an L&D professional, what are some of the good practices that can actually help you to be better, to do better in 2015? And therefore, we present to you the 7 habits of highly effective L&D professionals. These are: number one, be a consultant. This means that stay engaged with the business, find out what's happening, be close to the beating heart of the business, ask questions, engage with staff to try and understand what their needs are Number two, be a marketer. It's not enough now to schedule training programs, but you have to market. We all realize that it's challenging actually to get staff to attend training programs. And so one of the ways that you can overcome this is by actually going a step ahead to market, create a good poster, a good messaging around the program, create buy-in. Let staff know what are the benefits of actually attending the particular training programs. Number three, cut the fat. No one ever wants a very long course. You have to cut down the content. Of course, the content has to remain relevant, but it needs to be straight to the point. People do not want to be an information overload or to be overloaded with information. It's very important to be precise and to be engaging in any program. Number four, design for the extended team. We have a lot of teams working virtually, not necessarily in the same location. This is where the online programs can also come in handy. So the thing here is to ensure that all the programs that are designed can actually work for teams that are in HQ and as well as teams that are in the field. Number five, power up your peers. This is all about creating champions in the organizations who can also help drive the learning and development agenda. A lot of people have a talent for engaging. If you look at most teams, there's always the individual who's very good at learning, sharing, powering up fellow peers. These are some of the people who can become champions within the different departments and teams to ensure that learning and development is continuous. Number six, more channels and more resources means more noise. So actually it's important to use tools, curate. This is again about trimming down the information. Yes, it's good to share as much as possible, but ensure that at some point there's no information overload. Number seven, measure, measure, measure. It's important to set KPIs for training. I believe most organizations do it, but yes, ROI does matter. So it's important that at any given point there's continuous feedback, continuous measurement to ensure that the programs actually achieve what they need to achieve. So what's the future that we see? I like a quote by Alvin Toffler that says, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read or write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. What we're saying is that it's time for us to do something different. It's time for us to challenge ourselves to do better. And this is the future we see. Learning and development has a huge potential to empower organizations to achieve, but we must challenge ourselves to do more, to stay ahead of and abreast of all the trends and ensure that we incorporate new and exciting ways of doing things. And so in so doing, then we're going to be able to achieve what we need to achieve. We're going to be able to elevate organizations. We're going to be able to see our visions essentially come true. So for more information on what CBI 360 does, you can visit our website, which is cbi360.com. And we look forward to engaging with you further to see how we can actually drive the L&D agenda and the L&D industry to the next level.